The stars stretched endlessly across the dark void of space. Among them, a massive fleet of alien ships moved silently through the emptiness. These ships belonged to the Vorlak Empire, a civilization that had conquered 47 different worlds across the galaxy. Their ships were huge, covered in dark metal that seemed to absorb light itself. Inside the largest ship, Fleet Commander Thexilor sat on his command throne, watching the stars pass by on his viewing screen. Thexilor was a tall creature, with 4 arms and skin that changed colors based on his mood. Right now, his skin showed deep blue patterns, which meant he was feeling confident and pleased. He had good reason to feel this way. His scouts had just discovered something interesting in a far corner of the galaxy. On the other side of the galaxy, on a small blue and green planet called Earth, Dr. Junho Kim was working late at his desk. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the computer screens in front of him. Junho worked at the International Space Monitoring Facility in Seoul, South Korea. His job was to watch the skies and look for anything unusual in space. It was almost midnight. Most of his co-workers had gone home hours ago. The building was quiet except for the soft humming of computers and the occasional beep from the monitoring equipment. Junho liked working late. The silence helped him think clearly. Suddenly, one of his screens flashed red. Junho sat up straight in his chair. His heart began beating faster. The screen showed something near the moon, something that should not be there. The readings indicated an object, but it was unlike any satellite or space debris he had ever seen. The object was moving in strange patterns, almost as if it was looking around. Junho's fingers moved quickly across his keyboard, trying to get more information about the mysterious object. But before he could gather any useful data, the readings disappeared completely. It was as if the object had simply vanished into thin air. "That's strange," Junho muttered to himself. He checked his equipment, wondering if something had malfunctioned. Everything seemed to be working normally. Dr. Hana Choi walked into the monitoring room carrying 2 cups of coffee. She was Junho's colleague and one of the few people who also preferred working late at night. Hana placed 1 cup on Junho's desk and looked at his concerned face. "What's wrong?" she asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Junho pointed at his screen. "I detected something near the moon, something big, but it disappeared before I could identify it." Hana leaned closer to look at the data. She sipped her coffee slowly, her eyes scanning the numbers and graphs. After a moment, she shrugged. "Probably just cosmic interference," she said. "We get false readings all the time. Maybe it was a solar flare or some random space debris." "Maybe," Junho said, but he did not sound convinced. He had been doing this job for 10 years, and he knew the difference between normal interference and something real. Whatever he had detected felt different. It felt wrong. Hana patted his shoulder. "Don't worry too much. If it was important, it would show up again. Get some rest. You've been here for 14 hours straight." Junho nodded. But he saved all the data from that moment anyway. Something in his gut told him this was important. Far above Earth's atmosphere, invisible to all human detection systems, the Vorlak scout ship moved away from the moon. Inside the small craft, 2 Vorlak scouts reviewed the information they had gathered about the planet below. "The inhabitants are primitive," the first scout reported to Commander Thexilor through their communication system. "They have barely left their own planet. No signs of faster-than-light travel, no planetary defense shields, no orbital weapons platforms." The second scout added more information. "They are divided into many different groups called nations. These nations compete with each other and often fight among themselves. Their military technology relies on chemical explosions and basic nuclear reactions. Very primitive compared to our standards." Thexilor listened carefully to the report. His skin began showing yellow patterns, which meant he was thinking deeply. A planet with resources but no real defenses. This was an opportunity the Vorlak Empire could not ignore. "What about their population?" Thexilor asked. Approximately 8 billion individuals, the scout replied. They call themselves humans. They breathe oxygen, drink water, and seem to be quite fragile physically. Their planet has abundant resources, including rare minerals, water, and a stable atmosphere. The planet's location is also strategically valuable for expanding our empire in this region of the galaxy. Thexeler's skin turned bright orange, showing his excitement. Continue monitoring from a safe distance. Do not let them detect you again. I will report this to the High Command. The Vorlak Empire's High Command met in a massive chamber on their home planet. 12 members of different Vorlak clans sat around a circular table made from dark crystal. Each member represented billions of Vorlak citizens and dozens of conquered worlds. Commander Thexelor presented his findings about Earth using holographic projections. The images showed Earth's blue oceans, green lands, and white clouds. They showed human cities full of lights. They showed human vehicles moving on roads and human aircraft flying through the sky. As you can see, Thexelor explained, this planet possesses everything we need for our next expansion. Resources, strategic location, and most importantly, it is completely defenseless. Our analysis suggests that our fleet could take control of this planet within days, perhaps even hours. One of the High Command members, an elderly Vorlak with silver skin, spoke up. Are you certain they pose no threat? Even primitive species can sometimes surprise us. Thexeler's skin showed green patterns, indicating absolute certainty. I am completely certain, honored elder. They cannot even travel between stars. They have no energy shields. Their weapons are laughably primitive. They are like children playing with wooden sticks while we wield plasma cannons. This will be the easiest conquest in our empire's history. Another council member asked, what about their behavior? Are they peaceful or aggressive? They are aggressive with each other, Thexelor answered, but only in small, localized conflicts. They have never faced a real invasion from space. They have no experience with interstellar warfare. They do not even believe that other intelligent species exist. We will shock them into submission before they understand what is happening. The High Command voted. The decision was unanimous. Earth would become the 48th system under Vorlak control. The conquest would begin in 6 months, giving them time to gather a proper invasion fleet and plan the occupation. Back on Earth, life continued normally. People went to work, children went to school, and nobody knew that their entire world had just been marked for invasion. Junho Kim continued monitoring the skies every night, but he never detected the Vorlak scout ship again. The aliens had learned to hide themselves better. 6 months passed quickly. On Earth, seasons changed. Spring turned to summer, then to autumn. People celebrated holidays, fell in love, had arguments, and lived their ordinary lives. They looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there, never knowing that someone was looking back at them. In space, the Vorlak prepared their largest invasion fleet ever assembled. 300 warships gathered at a secret location, each one loaded with weapons and soldiers. Commander Thexelor inspected his fleet with pride. Soon, Earth would belong to the Vorlak Empire. The Vorlak made one critical mistake in their planning. They assumed that defenseless meant helpless. They assumed that primitive meant weak. They assumed that divided meant defeatable. They were about to learn how wrong they were about humanity. The morning started like any other morning around the world. In Tokyo, people rushed to catch their trains to work. In New York, coffee shops opened their doors to sleepy customers. In Seoul, students walked to school carrying heavy backpacks. The sun rose and set as it always did, and nobody expected anything unusual to happen. Then, at exactly 3 in the afternoon, Greenwich Mean Time, every telescope on Earth that was pointed at space detected the same thing. 300 massive objects appeared at the edge of the solar system, just beyond Neptune's orbit. The objects were not asteroids or comets. They were ships, alien ships. At first, people thought it was a mistake. Scientists checked and rechecked their instruments. But the readings were correct. The ships were real and they were moving toward Earth. Within minutes, emergency alerts went out to every government on the planet. Military bases went on high alert. Presidents and prime ministers were woken from sleep and rushed to secure locations. News networks interrupted their regular programs with breaking news bulletins. The world watched in shock as images of the alien fleet appeared on screens everywhere. Dr. Jun-Ho Kim was at the monitoring facility when the ships appeared. He had been right 6 months ago. Something had been watching Earth, now that something had returned with an army. "I knew it," Jun-Ho whispered, staring at his screens. "I knew something was wrong." Hana stood beside him, her face pale with fear. "How many ships are there?" "Our computers are still counting," Jun-Ho replied, his voice shaking. "But it looks like hundreds, maybe more." Across the world, panic began to spread. Some people ran to stores to buy food and supplies. Others tried to flee cities, causing massive traffic jams on highways. Some people went to churches, temples, and mosques to pray. Everyone was terrified. At the United Nations headquarters in New York, an emergency meeting was called. Representatives from every country gathered in the main assembly hall. The room buzzed with worried voices speaking dozens of different languages. Everyone wanted answers, but nobody had any. Then at midnight, the aliens sent a message. Every television, radio, computer, and phone on Earth received it at the same time. The message played in every language humans spoke. The voice was strange, mechanical, but clear. "People of Earth," the message began. "I am Fleet Commander Thexilor of the Vorlak Empire. Your planet has been selected to join our empire. You have 72 hours to surrender peacefully. If you surrender, you will be allowed to live as workers in our empire. If you refuse, we will take your planet by force, and many of you will die. Choose wisely. The decision is yours." The message ended. Silence fell across the planet for a moment. Then chaos erupted. At the United Nations, arguments broke out immediately. Some representatives wanted to surrender right away. They believed fighting was useless against such advanced technology. "We have no chance," shouted the representative from Belgium. "Look at their ships. They crossed the solar system in hours. What took our fastest probe 9 years, they did in a morning. We cannot fight this." But others refused to accept defeat. The representative from South Korea stood up, her voice strong and clear. "If we surrender without fighting, we are already dead," she said. "We will be slaves forever. Our children will be slaves. Our grandchildren will be slaves. At least if we fight for our freedom. I say we make them pay for every meter of ground they take." The arguments continued for hours. Meanwhile, military leaders around the world held their own meetings. They knew they had only 3 days to prepare for war. In South Korea, Colonel Minho Park gathered with his officers at a military base outside Seoul. Minho was a veteran soldier who had served for 20 years. He was strong, smart, and respected by everyone who knew him. Now he faced the most important mission of his life. "Listen carefully," Minho told his officers. "We all know we are outmatched. Their technology is far beyond ours. But that does not mean we are helpless. Throughout history, weaker forces have defeated stronger ones through clever tactics and determination. We know our land. We know our cities. We will use that advantage." One of his officers, a young lieutenant named Taiho, asked, "What can we possibly do against ships that can cross space? Our missiles might not even scratch their hulls." Minho smiled grimly. "We will find out. But remember this. They think we are primitive. They think we are weak. They think this will be easy. We will prove them wrong." Similar conversations happened at military bases around the world. In the United States, generals planned strategies. In Russia, commanders prepared their forces. In China, soldiers trained for the coming battle. Every nation on Earth, even those that had been enemies for decades, suddenly became allies facing a common threat. While the military prepared for war, ordinary citizens also got ready to fight in their own ways. In Seoul, a brilliant engineer named Yuna Lee gathered her team at the Samsung Advanced Research Institute. Yuna was only 30 years old, but she was already famous for her innovative designs in computer technology. "We have 3 days," Yuna told her team, 3 days to create something that might help us survive. "I have been studying the signal patterns from the alien message. Their technology is advanced, yes, but all technology has weaknesses. If we can find their weakness, we might have a chance." Her team looked doubtful, but they trusted Yuna. They had worked with her for years and knew that when she believed in something, it was worth trying. "What do you need us to do?" asked one of her assistants. "We need to build a computer virus," Yuna explained. "But not just any virus. This virus needs to be able to work on alien technology we have never seen before. It needs to be adaptable, intelligent, and invisible until it is too late. I know it sounds impossible, but we have to try." The team got to work immediately. They would work without sleep for the next 3 days, fueled by coffee, determination, and the knowledge that they were fighting for their world's survival. In Beijing, a fighter pilot named Jinwoo Han volunteered for a special mission. Jinwoo was one of the best pilots in the world, known for his incredible reflexes and fearless attitude. Now he would lead a squadron of pilots in what everyone expected to be a suicide mission. "We cannot match their ships in technology," the general told Jinwoo and his squadron. "But we can match them in courage. Your mission is simple. Attach nuclear warheads to your aircraft and fly them directly into the alien ships. You probably will not survive, but you might damage them enough to give others a chance." Jinwoo looked at the other pilots in his squadron. They were all young, most in their 20s. They all knew they were being asked to die, but not one of them refused. "We understand," Jinwoo said calmly. "When do we fly?" "When they get close enough," the general replied. "Make your peace with your families. Tell them goodbye, and know that your sacrifice will be remembered forever." In Mumbai, a quantum physicist named Dr. Sora Chen worked frantically in her laboratory. Sora had been researching quantum entanglement for years, studying how particles could be connected across vast distances. Her research had always been theoretical, with no practical applications. But now, facing invasion, she thought she might have found a use for her work. "If I can create a quantum bridge," Sora muttered to herself, working at her computer, "I might be able to send information directly into their systems. It would only work for a moment, but a moment might be enough." She worked through the night, testing and retesting her theories. The mathematics was incredibly complex, and she had to make dozens of calculations. But slowly, piece by piece, her plan came together. Around the world, millions of people prepared in whatever ways they could. Some dug shelters, some stockpiled food and water, some said goodbye to loved ones, some prayed, some cried, but many, especially the young ones, felt something unexpected. They felt angry. How dare these aliens come to Earth and demand surrender? How dare they threaten humanity's home? Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. They would survive this too. The 72 hours passed quickly. On the 3rd day, the alien fleet reached Earth orbit. 300 massive warships surrounded the planet like a net. They were beautiful in a terrible way, dark and sleek and deadly. Commander Thexilor sat on his command throne, waiting for Earth's surrender message. He was certain it would come. Every other species had surrendered when faced with such overwhelming force. Humans would be no different. But the surrender message never came. Instead, Thexilor received sensor readings showing that humans were moving weapons into position. They were preparing to fight. Thexilor's skin turned red with anger. How could these primitives dare to resist? Did they not understand how hopeless their situation was? "Very well," Thexilor said coldly. If they choose death, we will give it to them. Begin the invasion. The war for Earth was about to begin. The first attacks came from orbit. The Vorlak warships fired bright blue beams of energy at Earth's satellites. Within minutes, hundreds of satellites exploded into pieces. Communication systems went dark across the planet. Television signals disappeared. Internet connections failed. GPS systems stopped working. The Vorlak wanted to blind humanity before they landed their ground forces. But the Vorlak did not know that humans had backup systems. Military forces around the world switched to radio communications. Old technology, simple technology. But it worked. The military network stayed connected. Commander Thexilor watched from his flagship as his forces prepared to land on Earth. He had chosen 10 major cities for the first invasion: New York, London, Moscow, Beijing, Tokyo, Seoul, Mumbai, Cairo, Sydney, and São Paulo. His plan was simple: land overwhelming force in these cities, capture the governments, and force a quick surrender. "Deploy the landing forces," Thexilor ordered. "Show these humans what happens when they resist the Vorlak Empire." Large dropships detached from the warships in orbit. Each dropship carried 200 Vorlak soldiers and heavy weapons. They descended through Earth's atmosphere, their shields glowing red from the heat. The Vorlak soldiers inside prepared their weapons, confident that this would be an easy battle. The dropships heading toward Seoul entered the atmosphere over the Yellow Sea. They flew toward the city at incredible speeds, expecting no real resistance. That was their first mistake. From hidden positions around Seoul, hundreds of missiles launched into the sky. These were old missiles, some more than 20 years old, but there were so many of them. The sky filled with white trails of smoke as the missiles raced toward the dropships. The Vorlak shields protected them from the first wave of missiles. The weapons exploded harmlessly against the energy barriers surrounding the ships. The Vorlak pilots laughed at the primitive attempts to stop them. Then the second wave hit, then the third, then the fourth. The missiles kept coming, wave after wave, more than the Vorlak had expected. Some dropships had their shields overloaded from the constant bombardment. When a shield failed, the next missile got through, and the ship exploded in a ball of fire. Colonel Minho Park watched from a command center deep underground as 3 dropships fell from the sky, trailing smoke and flames. It was not much, but it was something. The aliens could be hurt. "Keep firing," Minho ordered. "Make them pay for every meter they advance." 5 dropships still made it through the missile barrage and landed in different parts of Seoul. The massive ships crushed buildings as they touched down, their landing gear smashing through concrete and steel. Rear ramps opened, and Vorlak soldiers poured out. The Vorlak soldiers were impressive warriors. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in advanced armor that could stop bullets. They carried plasma rifles that could melt through steel. They moved with practiced military precision, forming defensive positions around their landing sites. But Seoul did not give them time to organize. From the surrounding buildings, humans opened fire. Not just soldiers, but police officers, armed citizens, anyone who could hold a weapon. Bullets struck the Vorlak armor, most bouncing off harmlessly, but the sheer volume of fire forced the aliens to take cover. The Vorlak had never experienced this kind of resistance. The other species they conquered had surrendered quickly or fought in organized military formations. The humans fought from everywhere, from nowhere, using tactics that made no sense to the Vorlak tactical computers. Minho Park led his special forces team through Seoul's underground subway tunnels. The city had an extensive network of tunnels, built over decades for trains and utilities. The Vorlak did not know about these tunnels. That was their second mistake. Minho's team emerged from a subway entrance right behind a group of Vorlak soldiers. The aliens were focused on the buildings ahead of them, never expecting an attack from behind. Minho's team threw grenades and opened fire with automatic weapons at close range. 3 Vorlak soldiers fell before the others could react. The Vorlak turned their plasma weapons on Minho's position, but the humans were already gone, disappearing back into the tunnels. Before the Vorlak could pursue, another team emerged from a different tunnel entrance and attacked from a new direction. This pattern repeated across Seoul. The humans would attack, then disappear. They would strike from unexpected angles, then vanish before the Vorlak could respond. The aliens had superior weapons and armor, but the humans had the advantage of knowing every street, every building, every tunnel in their own city. Similar battles raged in the other targeted cities. In Moscow, the cold winter weather affected the Vorlak equipment, causing malfunctions they had not prepared for. In Mumbai, the dense population meant that Vorlak soldiers faced attacks from every direction, unable to distinguish civilians from combatants. In Beijing, the sheer number of defenders overwhelmed the Vorlak tactical systems. But the ground battles were not the only fighting. In space, something unexpected was happening. Pilot Jin-Woo Han sat in the cockpit of his modified spacecraft. It was not really a military craft at all. It had started as a mining ship, designed for moving through asteroid fields. But engineers had attached rocket engines to it and loaded it with a nuclear warhead. Jin-Woo and his squadron of 19 other pilots prepared to launch from a hidden base on the dark side of the moon. "Remember," Jin-Woo told his squadron over the radio, "we only get one chance at this. Choose your targets carefully. Make your sacrifice count." The 20 small ships launched from the moon base, accelerating toward the Vorlak fleet in Earth orbit. The Vorlak sensors detected them immediately, but the tactical computers dismissed them as insignificant threats. They were too small, too slow, too primitive to be dangerous. That was their third mistake. Jin-Woo aimed his ship at a Vorlak destroyer, one of the medium-sized warships. His hands were steady on the controls, even though he knew he was flying toward his death. He thought about his family, about his country, about his planet. If his death could save others, it was worth it. The Vorlak destroyer fired its point defense weapons at the approaching ships. Several of Jin-Woo's squadron members exploded before reaching their targets. But Jin-Woo kept flying, dodging the incoming fire with incredible skill. The Vorlak shields easily could stop his ship, but Jin-Woo had studied the sensor data carefully. He knew the shields were strongest at the front and sides. He came from above, where the shields were slightly weaker. His ship struck the destroyer's upper hull. The nuclear warhead detonated on impact. The explosion was enormous, visible from Earth's surface as a brief new star in the sky. The destroyer's shields absorbed most of the blast, but the sheer force overloaded the generators. For just 3 seconds, the shields flickered and failed. 3 seconds was enough. Another pilot from Jin-Woo's squadron flew through the gap and crashed directly into the destroyer's reactor core. The second explosion tore the destroyer apart from the inside. Of the 20 pilots who launched from the moon base, only 2 survived the mission. But they had destroyed 1 destroyer and damaged 3 other warships. The Vorlak fleet learned a harsh lesson. Humans were willing to trade their lives for victory. On Earth, in her laboratory in Seoul, Yuna Lee watched the battle reports with growing excitement. She had been working without sleep for 3 days, and her computer virus was almost complete. But she needed something more. She needed a way to deliver the virus to the Vorlak systems. That was when she received a call from India. Dr. Sora Chen had successfully created a quantum entanglement device. If Yuna could send her virus through Sora's quantum bridge, it might be able to penetrate the Vorlak computer networks. "Are you sure this will work?" Yuna asked over the encrypted connection. "Honestly? No," Sora replied. "The theory is sound, but we have never tested anything like this. We will only get one chance. If it fails, the Vorlak will detect our attempt and shield their systems against future attacks." Yuna looked at her computer screen, at the virus code she had written. It was her best work, elegant and deadly. But would it be enough? "Let's do it," Yuna decided. "We have nothing to lose." The 2 women worked together. connecting their systems across thousands of miles. Sora activated her quantum entanglement device, creating a microscopic bridge into the Vorlak network. The bridge would only last for a fraction of a second, but that was all Yuna needed. She pressed the Enter key. Her virus uploaded into the Vorlak system faster than thought itself. Then the quantum bridge collapsed, and it was done. For several minutes, nothing happened. Yuna and Sora waited anxiously, wondering if their plan had failed. Then reports started coming in from around the world. Vorlak ships were experiencing technical problems. Navigation systems were giving false readings. Weapons were failing to target correctly. Communication channels were broadcasting strange signals. The virus was working. On his flagship, Commander Thexilor stared at his displays in confusion and growing fear. Something was wrong with his fleet's computer systems. His technicians worked frantically to identify the problem, but the virus was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It did not just attack the systems. It learned, adapted, and spread through their networks like a living thing. "Sir," his navigation officer reported, "I am getting false coordinates from the positioning system. I cannot trust any of my instruments." "Sir," his weapons officer added, "the targeting computers are malfunctioning. Several ships report their weapons are locked onto friendly vessels." Thexilor's skin turned purple with rage and fear. How had these primitive humans done this? The Vorlak had the most advanced computer security in the known galaxy. Their systems were supposed to be impenetrable, but the Vorlak had made their fourth mistake. They had assumed that because humans could not travel between stars, they must be primitive in all areas. They never considered that humans might excel in different technologies. The Vorlak were master shipbuilders and weapons makers, but humans were masters of information technology. As the virus spread through the Vorlak fleet, the tide of battle began to shift. Human forces on the ground gained advantages as Vorlak communication failed and coordination broke down. In space, damaged Vorlak ships drifted out of formation, their navigation systems confused. And in their underground command centers, human military leaders saw an opportunity. The aliens were vulnerable. Now was the time to strike back harder. The virus spread through the Vorlak fleet like a disease. Every ship that tried to connect with another ship became infected. Every communication signal carried the virus further. Within hours, the entire fleet was compromised. Commander Thexilor watched his carefully planned invasion fall apart. On his viewing screen, he saw one of his cruisers firing at a friendly destroyer because the targeting system had identified it as an enemy. He saw dropships trying to land, but missing their targets by miles because the navigation was wrong. He saw chaos where there should have been perfect military order. "Cut all network connections," Thexilor ordered desperately. "Every ship operates independently until we can clean our systems." But it was too late. The virus had already infected every computer in the fleet. Cutting the connections only meant they could not coordinate their attacks anymore. The Vorlak fleet, which had seemed so powerful and organized just hours before, was now a collection of confused ships acting alone. On Earth, human forces took advantage of the chaos. Colonel Minho Park led a major counterattack in Seoul. His forces emerged from the tunnels in multiple locations simultaneously, surrounding the Vorlak landing sites. Without working communications, the Vorlak soldiers could not call for reinforcements or air support. They were trapped. The battle was fierce and bloody. The Vorlak soldiers were still dangerous, their armor strong and their plasma weapons deadly. But the humans had numbers and determination. For every human that fell, 2 more took their place. The defenders of Seoul fought with a fury the Vorlak had never encountered. One Vorlak soldier found himself separated from his unit, backed into an alley by a group of human fighters. He raised his plasma rifle, but before he could fire, an elderly woman threw a bottle filled with gasoline and fire at him. The primitive weapon splashed burning liquid across his armor, and while he tried to extinguish the flames, the human fighters rushed him with clubs and knives. This scene repeated across Seoul and the other invaded cities. The humans used every weapon they could find, from military hardware to improvised devices. They turned their own city infrastructure against the invaders, collapsing buildings on Vorlak positions, flooding tunnels where aliens had taken shelter, even cutting power lines and using them as electric traps. In Moscow, a young girl named Katya became famous for running between soldiers delivering ammunition while under fire. In Cairo, an old shopkeeper named Hassan used his knowledge of the ancient city's underground passages to guide strike teams behind enemy lines. Heroes emerged everywhere, ordinary people doing extraordinary things to defend their home. In space, human forces launched a coordinated attack on the confused Vorlak fleet. Every spacecraft that could carry a weapon was sent up, from military fighters to converted civilian ships. They attached missiles, bombs, and even just chunks of metal to be used as kinetic weapons. The human fleet was not impressive by any military standard, but there were thousands of them. The Vorlak tried to defend themselves, but their targeting systems kept malfunctioning. Ships that should have been able to easily destroy the human craft instead missed repeatedly. Some Vorlak ships accidentally shot at each other. The virus had turned their advanced technology into a liability. A converted cargo ship from Japan rammed into a Vorlak frigate. The ship's captain had filled his cargo hold with explosives and flew his ship directly into the enemy vessel. Both ships exploded, but the trade was worth it to humanity. They had thousands of small ships. The Vorlak only had 300 large ones. During the chaos, something important happened that would change the entire war. A damaged Vorlak supply ship crashed in the desert of Nevada. The ship was mostly intact, and American forces secured it before any Vorlak rescue team could arrive. Inside the ship, human engineers found intact Vorlak technology: computers, weapons, energy generators, and most importantly, detailed technical manuals. Teams of scientists and engineers from around the world descended on the captured ship. They worked around the clock, studying every detail of the alien technology. What they discovered was both exciting and frustrating. The Vorlak technology was advanced, yes, but it was not magic. It was still technology, following rules and principles that humans could understand. Dr. Junho Kim was part of the team analyzing the Vorlak computer systems. He worked alongside Yuna Lee, and together they discovered something crucial. The Vorlak used a universal network protocol for all their systems. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of equipment used the same basic communication language. This is their biggest weakness, Junho explained to the military commanders. They built everything to work together seamlessly, which makes their technology very efficient. But it also means that once we understand their protocol, we can access all their systems. Yuna smiled. My virus was just the beginning. Now that we have their actual hardware, I can create something much more powerful. Give me 3 days. While Yuna worked on an improved virus, other teams focused on reverse engineering Vorlak weapons and shields. The technology was complex, but human engineers were smart and motivated. They did not need to fully understand everything. They just needed to make it work. A breakthrough came from an unexpected place. A teenager from South Korea named Yoonji, who was famous online for modifying video game consoles, figured out how to hack a Vorlak plasma rifle. She posted a video tutorial online showing others how to do it. Within days, resistance fighters around the world were using captured Vorlak weapons against their original owners. The war entered its 3rd week. The Vorlak still had more ships and better technology, but the humans were learning fast. Every day, human forces became more effective. Every day, they understood more about their enemy. Every day, they took back more ground. Commander Thexilor was forced to make a difficult choice. He could continue the ground invasion, but his forces were taking heavy casualties and making little progress. The humans fought like devils, never surrendering, always adapting. Or he could pull back his ground forces and bombard the planet from orbit, destroying the cities and killing millions. Thexalor chose to continue the ground invasion. The Vorlak Empire wanted Earth intact, with its resources and infrastructure undamaged. Destroying it from orbit would defeat the purpose of the invasion. But this decision gave humans more time to organize and learn. In the underground command center in Seoul, military leaders from around the world held a video conference. The participants included Colonel Minho Park, American General Richards, Russian Commander Volkov, Chinese General Wu, and representatives from dozens of other nations. "We are holding them," General Richards reported. "But barely. We have lost millions of people already. Our cities are in ruins. If this continues much longer, there might not be much left worth saving." "Then we need to end this quickly," Commander Volkov said. "We need to hit them so hard they decide Earth is not worth the cost." "I have a plan," Minho Park said. Everyone turned to look at him. "It is risky, but if it works, we can capture one of their capital ships, maybe even their flagship." The plan was bold and dangerous. Using the improved virus that Yuna Lee had created, they would target the Vorlak flagship specifically. They would overload its shield generators, causing a temporary failure. In that moment of vulnerability, a strike team would board the flagship using captured Vorlak transport ships. The team would fight their way to the command center and capture Commander Thexalor himself. "This is insane," one of the generals said. "How can we possibly take over a ship that big with just a small team?" Minho smiled grimly. "Because they will not expect it. The Vorlak have been underestimating us from the beginning. Let us give them one more surprise." The strike team was assembled. It included Special Forces soldiers from 12 different countries: Americans, Russians, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, British, French, German, Israeli, Brazilian, Indian, and Australian. 50 of the best fighters humanity had to offer. They trained for 4 days using captured Vorlak equipment and studying the layout of Vorlak ships. Yuna Lee prepared her improved virus carefully. This version was specifically designed to target the flagship's shield generators. It would create a cascade failure that would drop the shields for exactly 10 minutes. That was all the time the strike team would have to board the ship. Dr. Sora Chen prepared a second quantum bridge to deliver the virus. She had refined her technique and was confident it would work, but she could only do it once. The Vorlak would detect the quantum signature and shield against it immediately after. On the day of the attack, humanity launched a massive assault across all fronts. Every available soldier, every working weapon, every last resource was thrown at the Vorlak forces. The attack was designed to be distracting, to make the Vorlak focus on the ground battle and not notice what was happening in space. The plan worked. As the Vorlak commanders coordinated their defense against the ground assault, Sora activated her quantum bridge. Yuna's virus shot through the opening and buried itself deep in the flagship's computer systems. For 3 minutes, nothing happened. Then, the flagship's shields began to flicker. Energy readings spiked and dropped erratically. On the bridge, Vorlak technicians scrambled to stabilize the systems. But the virus was too clever. It had learned from their previous attempts to fight it. The shields collapsed completely. 2 captured Vorlak transport ships, piloted by human volunteers, raced toward the flagship. The Vorlak point defense weapons tried to shoot them down, but the targeting systems were still compromised by the original virus. Most shots missed. The transport ships crashed through the flagship's hangar bay doors. The strike team poured out, weapons ready. They were met immediately by Vorlak security forces. The battle inside the flagship began, close quarters and brutal. Minho Park led the team forward, fighting through corridor after corridor. The Vorlak were tough fighters, but the humans had studied their tactics. They knew which way the Vorlak would move, where they would take cover, how they would respond to threats. The strike team moved like a single organism, each member covering the others. They lost soldiers with each new corridor. A Chinese Special Forces operative named Wei fell, taking down 3 Vorlak guards. A Brazilian soldier named Silva sacrificed herself holding a doorway so the others could advance. Each loss hurt, but the team kept moving forward. Finally, they reached the bridge. The command center was large, filled with Vorlak officers and advanced equipment. At the center sat Commander Thexilor on his command throne, his skin showing colors of rage and fear. Minho raised his weapon, captured Vorlak plasma rifle in hand. "Surrender," he said simply, "or die." Commander Thexilor stared at the humans standing on his bridge, their weapons pointed at him and his crew. His skin changed through several colors rapidly, showing confusion, anger, and something the Vorlak rarely felt: fear. How had these primitive beings managed to board his flagship? How had they fought their way to the bridge? It should have been impossible. Minho Park kept his weapon steady, aimed directly at Thexilor. Around him, the remaining members of his strike team secured the Vorlak bridge crew. They had lost 23 soldiers getting here, 23 friends and comrades who would never see Earth again. Their sacrifice would not be wasted. "Order your fleet to cease fire," Minho said calmly. "Now." Thexilor's skin turned dark red with defiance. "I will not surrender to primitives. Kill me if you wish, but my fleet will continue fighting. You have accomplished nothing except getting yourselves killed." Minho nodded to one of his team members, a Korean technical specialist named Hyun. Hyun moved to the main computer console and began working. Within seconds, he had accessed the flagship's communication system. "You are wrong," Minho said. "We have accomplished something very important. We have learned how your technology works, and now we control the ship that commands your entire fleet." Hyun looked up from the console. "I have access to their fleet-wide communications, sir." "Good," Minho replied. He activated his radio to contact Earth. "This is Strike Team 1 to command. We have secured the flagship, ready to proceed with Phase 2. On Earth, in the command center in Seoul, General Richards received the message. He looked at the other commanders around him. This was the moment they had planned for. Now came the hardest part. "Send the message," Richards ordered. Across the Vorlak fleet, every ship received a new signal. It came from their own flagship, using their own encrypted channels. The message showed human forces in control of the flagship bridge, with Commander Thexilor captured. Then a new voice spoke, calm and clear in the Vorlak language. "Vorlak Fleet, this is General Richards of Earth Defense Forces. Your commander has been captured. Your invasion has failed. We offer you one chance to leave peacefully. Depart our system immediately, and we will allow you to go. Stay, and we will destroy every one of your ships. You have 1 hour to decide." On Vorlak, ships throughout the fleet, commanders looked at each other in shock. Some argued for continuing the fight. Others pointed out that without their flagship and commander, they were vulnerable. The human virus still plagued their systems. Their coordination was broken, and the humans had proven far more dangerous than anyone had expected. Thexilor watched the debate play out on his bridge's communication screens. His fleet was falling apart, commanders arguing with each other instead of following the chain of command. He had failed. The invasion he had promised would be easy had turned into a disaster. "You have won this battle," Thexilor said bitterly to Minho. "But the Vorlak Empire is vast. Other fleets will come. You cannot defeat us all." Minho smiled without humor. "Maybe, maybe not. But they will think twice before attacking Earth. And every day we have to prepare, we become stronger. We are learning your technology. Next time, we will be ready." The hour passed slowly. Around Earth, human forces maintained their attacks, keeping the pressure on the Vorlak ground forces. In space, human ships surrounded the Vorlak fleet, small vessels armed with everything from nuclear weapons to simple kinetic projectiles. They could not win a direct fight, but they could make the cost of staying very, very high. Finally, one by one, the Vorlak ships began to signal their agreement. They would leave. Some commanders did so reluctantly. Others seemed almost relieved. The ground forces were recalled to their ships. The Vorlak began their retreat. But General Richards and the other human commanders had one more thing planned. They needed to ensure this would never happen again. They needed to send a message not just to the Vorlak, but to every species in the galaxy. Dr. Junho Kim had been working with Yuna Lee on a special project. They had studied the Vorlak communication systems and discovered how to access their long-range transmitters. These devices could send signals across dozens of light years, allowing the Vorlak to stay in contact with their home empire. Now, humans would use those same transmitters to send a message to the galaxy. In a studio in Seoul, a linguist named Dr. Minji Song prepared to record the message. Minji had spent the last 3 weeks learning the Vorlak language and studying the languages of other species the Vorlak had encountered. She had crafted a message that would be understood by as many alien civilizations as possible. The recording equipment was set up. Cameras captured Minji's image. Audio recorders captured her voice. Behind her, screens showed images of the war. Human fighters resisting Vorlak forces, destroyed alien ships, cities in ruins but still standing, and most importantly, humans refusing to surrender. Minji took a deep breath and began speaking. Her voice was steady and strong. "To all civilizations beyond Earth," she said in the Vorlak language, which would be translated by their systems into dozens of other languages. "We are humanity. We are the inhabitants of the planet you call Target World 47B. We call it Earth, and it is our home. The Vorlak Empire came to our world believing we were defenseless. They saw that we could not travel between stars. They saw that we had no energy shields or plasma weapons. They saw that we fought among ourselves. They believed these things made us weak. They were wrong. We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest. We are not the most advanced. But we have something that your technology cannot measure. We have the will to survive. We have the ability to adapt. We have the determination to fight for our home, no matter the cost." The Vorlak came with 300 warships and thought they could conquer us in days. It has been 3 weeks, and they are retreating. They came with superior technology, and we turned it against them. They came with trained soldiers, and we met them with ordinary citizens who refused to be slaves. We lost millions of our people in this war. Our cities are damaged. Our world is scarred. But we are still here. We are still free. And we are stronger now than we were before because we have learned from this experience. To the Vorlak Empire and any other civilization considering Earth as a target, remember this day. Remember that defenseless does not mean helpless. Remember that primitive does not mean weak. Remember that divided does not mean defeatable. We do not seek war with other species. We would prefer peace and cooperation. But if you come to our world with weapons and demands of surrender, you will find that humans do not kneel. We fight, we adapt, we survive, and we never, ever forgive those who threaten our home. Earth is defended by 8 billion humans, and every single one of us would rather die fighting than live as slaves. Choose your next actions carefully." The message ended. Junho and Yuna worked together to broadcast it using the Vorlak transmitters. The signal went out in all directions, spreading across space at the speed of light, carrying humanity's warning to the stars. On the Vorlak flagship, Thexilor heard the message and felt something he had never experienced before: respect for an enemy. These humans were fierce. Given time, they would become a major power in the galaxy. The Vorlak Empire had made a terrible mistake attacking them. "What will you do with me?" Thexilor asked Minho. "We are not monsters," Minho replied. "You will be returned to your fleet, but you will carry our message back to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not worth the cost." Thexalor was transported to a shuttle and sent back to his fleet. As he left the flagship, now under human control, he looked back at the blue planet below. It looked so peaceful from space, so beautiful and fragile. But he knew the truth now. Earth was defended by the most stubborn, most adaptable, most dangerous species he had ever encountered. The Vorlak fleet departed the solar system. It took them 3 days to gather all their forces and begin the journey home. As they left, human forces did not pursue. They watched the aliens go, weapons ready in case of a trick, but allowing them to leave peacefully. When the last Vorlak ship disappeared from Earth's sensors, celebrations erupted around the world. People poured into the streets, crying and laughing and hugging strangers. They had survived. They had won. But the leaders of Earth knew the celebration had to be brief. There was much work to do. The captured Vorlak flagship and several damaged ships that could not escape were treasure troves of technology. Teams of scientists and engineers began studying them immediately. Over the following months, human technology advanced rapidly. They reverse-engineered Vorlak shield technology and began installing it on military bases and cities. They studied the faster-than-light drives and started building their own versions. They learned how to manufacture plasma weapons and energy generators. Una Lee led the effort to create Earth's own computer security systems, ensuring that no other species could use similar tactics against humanity. Junho Kim worked on improving Earth's sensor networks, making sure no one could sneak up on the planet again. Colonel Minho Park became General Park, leading the newly formed United Earth Defense Force. Soldiers from every nation joined this new organization, dedicated to protecting the entire planet. The old conflicts between nations seemed less important now. They had faced extinction together and survived together. In space, humanity began building its own defense fleet. The ships were smaller than Vorlak vessels, but incorporated lessons learned from the war. They were fast, maneuverable, and designed specifically for defending Earth rather than conquering other worlds. 5 years after the invasion, Earth launched its first exploration ship. The crew was international, representing nations from around the world. Their mission was not to conquer, but to explore, to make contact with other civilizations peacefully, and to establish Earth's presence in the galaxy. 20 years after the invasion, Dr. Hana Choi stood beside Junho Kim at the orbital defense platform Earth-1. They were older now, with gray in their hair, but they were also proud of what humanity had accomplished. The platform was one of 12 massive stations surrounding Earth, each armed with weapons that combined human innovation with alien technology. "Do you think they will try again?" Hana asked, looking at the stars. Junho smiled. "If they do, they will be making their second mistake. We are not the same species they invaded 20 years ago. We are stronger, smarter, and more united." "I hope it does not come to that," Hana said. "I hope we can find peace with other species." "So do I," Junho agreed. "But if peace is not possible, we are ready for war." Far across the galaxy, in the archives of the Vorlak Empire, Earth's file was updated with a single classification code marked in their brightest warning color, "Do not engage." Below that, a note explained that Earth was defended by a species that compensated for technological limitations with tactical innovation, savage determination, and an absolute refusal to surrender. Other alien civilizations received the message that Earth had broadcast. Some dismissed it as bluster from a primitive species. Others took it seriously. A few scientific missions approached Earth carefully, peacefully, seeking knowledge exchange rather than conquest. These missions were welcomed, but those who came with weapons or demands found the same fierce resistance that the Vorlak had encountered. Word spread through the galaxy. Earth and its humans were not to be underestimated. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through peaceful first contact, but by proving that even the most advanced civilization should think twice before threatening the species that never learned how to quit. They had been underestimated once. It was a mistake no one would make twice. The invasion that was supposed to last days had lasted 3 weeks and cost the Vorlak Empire dearly. They had learned what humanity already knew, that the strongest weapon is not technology or numbers, but the will to fight for your home no matter the odds. Earth was safe, humanity was free, and the galaxy had learned an important lesson. They thought Earth was defenseless, but humanity showed them their first mistake.